Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Good morning, you guys. I want to talk to you today about modifications. What are modifications? Modifications is when you change things to work better for whatever situation you might have. Why would you have modifications in a fitness class, for example? I'm not going to talk about modifications in diet. That's something for your doctor to discuss with you. We're going to talk about fitness. Now, the type of fitness that is my focus is Zumba or other group fitness. So we're not going to talk about using weights. We're not going to talk about other types of fitness like CrossFit or Insanity or stuff like that. We're going to talk about things we do mostly in classes where we're dancing. So reasons why you might need to modify. First of all, if you have had a recent injury, you would need to make some modifications so that you do not re-injure or aggravate a current injury if you're trying to keep your fitness up in spite of a problem area, particularly if it's a joint like a knee or ankle or hip or shoulder. You need to be very careful because those take a lot of time to heal. You want to be gentle on them. So you would need to modify some of your movements. Another reason is if you go to a class, let's say if you went to a Zumba master class at another fitness place, a fitness center that has carpet. It gets very tricky to move on carpet depending on what kind of shoes you have on. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Also, another reason that you might need to modify some of the moves is maybe you're a beginner. Maybe you haven't done any fitness in a long time or ever, and so it's hard for you to grasp what the movements are quickly because you're not used to being in a class like this, or maybe you simply are just not able to keep up. I totally get that. I couldn't keep up when I first started doing Zumba. So we're going to talk about that too. The modifications for injury or for not being able to keep up are pretty similar, pretty much the same thing, because only less focused to one area. Here are some ideas, okay? We're going to talk lower half of the body first because that's where most of our weight is bared on our legs, so we're going to worry about that first because that's the most typical modifications that need to be made. In our class, we do a lot of jumping up and down, a lot of hopping, jumping from one side to another, jumping forward, back. When you're jumping, it puts a lot of extra pressure on the knees, ankles, hips, all the way down through the body. It's even foot injuries, even if it's something small inside the foot, putting that extra pressure on a jump can mess you up. It can, even if it's just not that it hurts, you don't want to injure yourself so badly that you're going to need some kind of surgery or be forced to be completely off your feet for a while. If you're trying to keep yourself active, you don't want to increase any injuries or create any injuries or aggravate old injuries. So you need to make certain modifications with jumping. Now, the main thing that I usually tell people is if we are jumping and you can't jump because you have a recent surgery to your knee or a recent, you dislocated your hip, or you just tripped going through your house and messed your foot up. I've done that. Don't come up off the ground. This is also good for expectant mothers. If your doctor is telling you no jumping, this is a modification for you as well. I forgot to mention that one. That's another reason you might need modifications. Instead of jumping up off of the ground and coming back down on your feet, you're going to lower your impact point into the floor. So what you're basically doing is, like you're glued to the floor, your feet are staying on the floor and just your body is going up and down. So you'll have to be prepared to skip a beat or something, because if we're coming from down to up, you're going to be off. You understand? So you'll catch it on the second part of the movement. When we come back down, you'll go down with us and then go up, but leave those feet on the floor, okay? If you're jumping from side to side, same principle, only just spread your feet apart and take it down, and then be gentle on those knees, gentle on those hips and ankles. If you feel any twinge of pain, you need to make an adjustment, either to your posture, the angle of your foot. Play with it. Take your time, because it's more important that you stay safe than keep up with me, okay? If you need to slow your tempo so that you're going half the time that I am, and you're worried about messing people up, stay off to one side. You don't have to go all the way in the back. If you need to see me, stay off to the side, and you'll still be able to see fine. Another thing is, if we are doing something similar to jogging in place, we have some moves where we're hopping from one foot to another. Same kind of thing. You're lifting one side of the body from a lower position from the floor. From the floor. Don't get up off the floor. Another thing that we do sometimes, we do a lot of squats and lunges. And if we're doing squats, the modification for squats is going to have to do with where you have a problem. If you have a specific area that has a problem, then you're going to just be a little easier on that area. So that's going to be a difference of your stance. So if we're doing squats and you're having a hip issue, you're going to want to keep your feet a little closer in. Usually, we talked about that in the form video, your feet are somewhere around shoulder width. You don't want to go way past your shoulders. You don't want to go, you can go in, but that's the perfect spot. That's the sweet spot for squats. But you can also do good squats with your feet perfectly together too. It's a different focus. It's going to work different muscles, but it's worth saving your joints, okay? So squats, then lunges. Lunges put a lot of pressure on those knees and hips, and particularly the knees. So if we're doing lunges, it's just going to be a matter of how far forward you put the front foot. You don't have to put it as far forward. You also don't have to go down as low. That's another thing with regular squats too. You don't have to go down as low. Lunges, just do to where you feel comfortable, and if it starts to feel not comfortable, and I'm not talking about straining muscle, I'm talking about straining your injury area in particular. If you are modifying because you're new and you don't really have the balance maybe or the energy to really get into those lunges, same thing, make it a little smaller, bring it in closer to the body, okay? Now, when we do ab work, there's not a whole lot of injuries that get aggravated with ab work or core work, except for the back. So now with that in mind, you're just not going to go move, you're going to take your movements closer in, the same thing. You're just not going to go as far as me. So if we're doing our rocking, like in Bad Blood, that's for over here. So you're bending your spine from side to side. So if that has pain associated with it, if you have because of a back injury, then just make your rocks smaller. Just keep it in really small. or just stay still for that. It's a short part. Do whatever is the most comfortable. The next thing is, in particular, in that one, we have this sort of around the world. That one does put some pressure on the back. Just do a little tiny one. Leave it small. Okay. Now with arm stuff, your shoulders and elbows are going to be the most problematic area. Hands, we don't do a whole lot of hand stuff. So with the hands, you're just going to let those be free. But your elbows, but particularly your shoulders, your elbows can be a little delicate. There's only a few things, if we're moving our forearms around so that elbows are pivoting, you'll just want to be careful on that. Arms you can leave out entirely. That's one thing. You can still come and get some good cardio fitness and just leave your arms out if you have a serious problem with your shoulders, especially if we're reaching up high or doing any really big, wavy movements. You want to be careful of those shoulders. Just keep it really small. So the basic message here for modifications is keep it smaller, keep it in closer to the body, slow down the tempo. Those are your three parts of modifying. Now, when we talked about floor texture, like carpet, if there's stuff like that and you're worried about an injury happening, then there's a couple of things you can do. Most group fitness classes, it's a liability for you to remove your shoes. I have students ask me sometimes if they can remove their shoes, and if it's really a problem, I'll say, it's fine, but you're on your own. Don't fall down. If you fall down, it's not my fault because I'm making the suggestion to keep your shoes on. So if you take your shoes off in class, that's between you and the teacher. There are these things called dance socks that are actually like they look like headbands or wristbands, but they're smooth on one side. They've got like a coating, and you put them around your shoes so that it goes right under the ball of your foot, and it helps for sliding and all the stuff we talked about when we talked about form. It helps just moving around, the pivoting and stuff. Anywhere, any of those moves we do where you can jar the knees or the hips. So that's something that you can purchase. I think if you look on Pinterest, you'll probably find a pretty good do-it-yourself thing to make some. Other than that, I think that pretty much covers modifications. If I think of something else later on, then I'll come back and do another one. All right, so remember, y'all, fitness is a journey, not a destination. Keep up the good work.